Hey everyone, if you have tuned into the news over the last probably week-ish now, you've probably seen some crazy headlines like this.
The National Association of Realtors announced today a settlement with groups of home sellers agreeing to end landmark antitrust lawsuits by paying $418 million in damages and eliminating rules on commissions here.
Okay, we're going to break this down to you and to the public in general as to what this means for future home buyers and sellers. Okay, so back in October of 2023, NAR, the National Association of Realtors, which is kind of like the governing body of realtors or of agents nationwide, was found guilty in court of price fixing. Now, price fixing is kind of a strong word. I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that. However, NAR, along with a string of large other nationwide brokerages that I'm sure you've heard of, were all basically found liable for about $1.8 billion in damages. And the very next day, once that ruling came down, faced a huge line of copycat lawsuits where everyone was there trying to get their own piece of the pie. So back in November, when that broke, I did receive some requests from some viewers and some people and friends of mine that wanted me to kind of speak on that and kind of what that meant. However, I didn't really feel as though there was anything to really talk about because we didn't know what was going to come of that. Fast forward now, we are going to talk about it because last week, NAR released some details on a settlement that they agreed to that absolutely rocked headlines. And I mean, these headlines were just so outrageous. Look at these. There was one from NBC too. It was actually the first one I saw. However, they must have pulled it and changed the headline because I can't even find that particular one anymore. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go on record and say that these headlines are not true, not even remotely true. These are clickbait titles just full of fake hype. If you're me, this is my industry and I'm kind of a nerd, so I follow this stuff pretty closely. Bold statement here. The media just proved how incompetent they are with their jobs and their journalistic responsibilities. I mean, almost none of the headlines, especially the major news media organizations, none of their headlines were accurate. And I know everyone's just trying to get clicks. We do that on this channel. We try to flirt a little bit with the titles to make them a little bit more engaging. But some of their titles were just outrageous. And even the ones that were a little bit more vague were still shrouded in so much vaguity that it was clear that they didn't even really understand what they were talking about. Which first really enraged me, but now that I've calmed down, I see that it's all the more important for me to A, create this video, and B, the public needs good realtors, good agents, good people like us so that we can help explain to the public what's actually going on here. Okay, so I'm gonna go back real quick to the beginning. No assumptions. First of all, you have to know that realtors get paid to represent buyers and sellers. Don't worry, I'll do a whole nother video on our value and how we bring value to buyers and sellers later on, probably right after this one. But just understand that we do get paid to represent buyers and we do get paid to represent sellers. And I'm sure there are those out there filled with not so nice thoughts about all of this. They may think that they can buy and sell real estate on their own and they have a lot of maybe hate in their heart about our industry or how we get paid. For those of you out there that feel that way, I've got nothing but love for you, and I'm sorry. The original guilty verdict was surrounding the issue of whether or not there was an agreement to keep fees fixed at a certain rate. And the result was yes, based upon certain technicalities. I will tell you, whether those technicalities were there or not, anyone who was interviewing agents to sell their house had the opportunity to negotiate the selling fee with that agent, period. Now, if they couldn't come to an agreement on how much that fee was, then they can just simply go find another agent. There have always been discount brokers out there willing to do it for less. However, that's not how the court saw it. Now, the buyer side of the transaction is a little bit of a different story. I will agree that most buyers have no idea how their own agents get paid when they help them buy a house. They just know that they don't have to worry about it. So I'm gonna break it down for you. Traditionally, the listing agent agrees with the seller to a fee that's far more transparent. They agree on this fee. They take that fee and they offer a portion of it to whatever buyer's agent out there in the world brings them the person that ultimately buys the house. That's how it works and probably will continue to still work that way. Now, moving forward, it's important to understand that this particular settlement and the rules within it with this whole NAR thing are still not 100% final. There are appeals and there are adjustments that can and probably will be made. But as it stands now, there will be a clear decoupling of how the buyer's agents get paid and how the selling agents get paid. Two separate agent relationships. Buyer with a buyer agent with an agreement/contract, and seller with a selling agent, listing agent agreement, which would be actually the listing contract typically. Buyer agents will no longer get paid from the selling side without the buyer having a clear understanding of how they got paid. So, three things that came out of this proposed settlement, the big three things. One, NAR has to pay $418 million in damages. That doesn't really affect the public at all. Two, agents representing buyer clients will now have contracts in place with those buyers stating that there will be a transactional relationship and that the buyer agent will get paid. Duh. That seems kind of obvious. However, it wasn't always transparent, as I said before, in the past. So this is a good thing. This brings more transparency to our entire industry, which was needed. Three, shared compensation between the selling agent to the buying agent is no longer required. Not that it was technically required before. It isn't required. However, if it is offered, and in most cases it still will be, it must not be published on the MLS, which seems to kind of go against the idea of being transparent. But the idea is to separate the sharing of commissions without buyers knowing about it. Now, what does all this mean to you? Honestly, truly, no bullshit? Not much. Sellers will still hire listing agents to market and sell their homes. And with the majority of these headlines got wrong, those selling agents can and still will offer part of their fees to the buying agent who brings them the buyer. Because why wouldn't they? Buyers need representation. This is the largest financial decision that most buyers make in their entire lives when they're transacting in real estate. And believe me, there are risks. We represent buyers all the time who are nervous about the transaction or feel vulnerable that they may be getting taken advantage of from the other side. It's complicated to know your rights, know the process, to know how to maneuver the entire workings of the whole transaction. Let's be fair. You could cut your own hair, represent yourself in court. Heck, you could probably, if you've watched, action movies, give yourself your own stitches if you needed to. But why would you? The risk is pretty great in many of those cases, unless you love a mullet. There are experts out there whose job it is to help you with these things, who have decades of experience, and in the case of realtors, are fiduciaries, meaning it's our job to look out for our client's best interest. However, that goes both ways. It's in the listing agent's best interest to look out for their selling client's best interest. That's why you need representation on both sides. That's why it's not necessarily a good idea to go directly to the selling agent. I got news for you. It's ripe with conflict. If they're representing their client's side first, you may be getting asked to be taken advantage of. The system has always been built for the buyer's side to get paid out of a portion of the listing agent's fee, and it's not likely to change. The truth is that it almost can't change because of the way the structure is built, because of the way that the lending process operates. If you think about a buyer situation, think about this. You're buying a house, and in many cases, you don't have the extra buyer agent's fee kind of in cash just sitting in your wallet, right? You've saved and you've scratched together enough to put a down payment on your first home, and you've got that 5%. Or that 10% or 20% down. Great job. But do you have that extra cash also lying around to pay a buyer's agent and closing costs? Not usually. And in fact, this may end up hurting first-time home buyers more than anything else if it goes a particular direction, which I don't believe that it will. But overall, most people just don't have the extra cash to pay that buying agent right up front. Now, you might be clever and thinking, well, we can just build it into the loan, right? We can't do that either. There is a maximum allowable concessions that can take place when you're doing a loan. And even though the system in the past was built, it's basically kind of a balance sheet differentiation. Underwriters just simply won't let it happen. So we cannot just build it in to the loan. That's just not how the system's built. That was a long way around to explain that although this settlement thing isn't completely set in stone, and there are still questions that ultimately need answers, things likely will not change much. The fees will just simply be more transparent, which I agree and think will ultimately be a good thing for our industry. Both sides will know what they're paying for and know what they're getting. And I think that this will force some agents to either be better at their job and deliver more value, or to simply withdraw from the industry altogether. Either way, our team thinks this is a great opportunity to further provide more value and more service to both our buyer and seller clients. So remember, if you or someone you know is looking to buy or sell here in the area, our team would love to be your local real estate resource of choice. You can find us at krommrealestate.com, or you can go down in the description of the video and find our contact information there as well. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I hope this brought a little bit of clarity. If not, feel free to blow it up in the comments. Love to hear from you. Thanks again. We'll see ya.